Today we're arranging with some gorgeous supermarket flowers and some scented stock. If you want to learn how to make a simple arrangement for the home, then stay with me. So welcome back to today's tutorial. Now I have two supermarket bunches of flowers, a mixed bunch and some wonderfully scented stock. And I've got a little bit of extra foliage. This is eucalyptus, generally sold in a florist shop. Or if you're lucky enough to have it in your garden, you'll be able to cut it. But I'm going to arrange quite a simple arrangement in a fairly formal set pattern that hopefully you'll be able to copy at home. Now I have an ordinary round, it's just a plastic dish that is quite often used in a florist shop to make simple arrangements. If you don't have anything like this, you could use an ordinary saucer. And I've got some green floral foam. It's roughly about half of a block. That's been pre-soaked and it's going to fit quite snugly into my container. I'm going to force it down and then cut off any excess pieces. So let's just slide that in. You can see that sits really comfortably into my container. And I'm just going to get rid of these little bits on the side, really just to neaten it up. And you can see that I don't need any floral tape over the top of my container. It's quite firm and quite secure. But what you will notice is that I'm not going to be able to bring a huge amount of flowers out of the side because I don't have the depth there above the container. So I'm limiting myself to the shape of the arrangement that I'm going to make. But I think that's good enough for the fairly simple arrangement that I'm going to be doing today. Now we'll start with some of these gorgeous stock. If you don't already know, the stock is related to the cabbage family. So as the foliage deteriorates, it does tend to have a very strong smell to it. So my first tip for today's arrangement is to remove all of the foliage from the bottom of the stock. And this is going to be used to create my outline shape. So I'm going to look for a nice straight one. This is going to give me my center flower. And I'm probably going to use the flower on its full length. I've got some large flowers that have come in the mixed bunch. So I'm going to use this to create the tallest part of my arrangement. And I'm right in the middle there of the floral foam. Now I'm not going to go too far back in the foam because my flower is at risk of falling out of the back. And I don't want to come too far forward because then I risk not leaving enough space at the front for the remainder of my flowers. And then what I'm going to do on either side is sort of choose two that are fairly similar. And I'm going to cut those so they're roughly about half of the height of my taller flower. And what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to place them in on either side. But I'm not trying to create that formal triangle shape. I'm just making it a little bit more relaxed and a little looser. But what I'm going to do here is bring them into the foam slightly further forward. So if we look at it from the side, this is my back piece and I've come forward roughly about an inch. So I'm starting to create that three-dimensional effect rather than bringing all my flowers really close there at the back. So if we look at it from a few different angles, you can see I'm scaled down, smaller as I come round towards the front. And then with my two remaining stock, I'm going to cut these much shorter this time. So just to give you a rough guide, they're about the length of my scissors, probably similar to the size of my hand. And I'm going to work these two more towards the front. Now I quite often when I'm arranging say that we're making a triangle or a posy or an oval shaped arrangement. But today I'm just working with the flower shapes that I've got and not aiming for any specific shape or pattern. I'm just trying to evenly spread out the colours and the textures and we'll see what shape we end up with at the end. Now I'm going to choose my biggest flower and I think it's going to be the purpley blue Agapanthus, and I've got 3 large Agapanthus. Then I've also got 2 of the iris, that lovely purpley blue iris. So now what I've got to think about is how I can evenly balance out the colour and the flower so that the design ends up fairly symmetrical, because I have created a fairly balanced shape to start with. So I'm thinking that we're going to go with one of the Agapanthus sort of quite high, just a little bit in front of my stalk. Lower down so your eye is starting to travel down towards the base of the arrangement, and slightly forward, so again we're starting to create that lovely three-dimensional shape. And then on either side I'm going to place two of the slightly bigger Agapanthus in between, but they need to be a bit shorter. So let's try that again. So in between on either side, and I've almost created like a visual triangle. If we think about the texture and the shape of the Agapanthus, there's a three-pointed triangle. Then what I'm going to do with my two blue irises is pop them somewhere towards the middle so that I've got that blue colour travelling through to the centre of my arrangement as well. But what I'll do differently is I'm going to bring the blue more down through the middle section and out a little bit towards the front. So we've got a little bit of a rhythmic line, bringing that blue colour down through the front, but it's also continued on the outside. And I do often say in tutorials not to have your big flowers on the outside because they can be quite dominant and quite visually heavy, but I'm working with what I've got in today's selection. Right, so now I have three of this fabulous pink gerbera. This is really, really pretty. It's got a slight white edge to it. It's going to pick up nicely with the pink tones of my stock flower and introduce a different shape and a different texture. And because I've worked in that quite set pattern with the Agapanthus, I'm almost going to repeat that, but in a sort of upside down fashion. So we did a triangle with the Agapanthus. Hopefully you can visualize the triangle here and here. Then I'm going to do the same with two of the gerbera, and then I'm going to aim one here in the center. And really what I've done is just try to create a little bit of a pattern. Sometimes when you're learning flower arranging, it's better to have, oh, now these aren't quite, this one's a little bit lower down, so I'm just going to lift that one up slightly. So sometimes when you're learning to arrange flowers, it's better to work with a pattern. Some people work better when they can follow a structure and a pattern. Some people can work really naturally and don't have to follow any set guidance or set rules. So what I'll do when I finish this one, I'll take it apart and I'll create something different with it, but in a less formal pattern, something more free-flowing and more natural. But we've sort of got a triangle. It's very symmetrical, it's very balanced on either side, but it gives a really clear indication of how you can mix those flowers that come from that standard mixed bunch that you quite often get from a supermarket. Okay, so in that mixed bunch is a piece of greenery, and it's just one piece of pittosporum, and I'm going to thin it out slightly, and then I can use this towards the back of my design. This will help strengthen the height. I'm going to angle it slightly backwards so that it's going to start giving me that three-dimensional effect again at the back. And with the smaller pieces that I've cut off, I can use them lower down towards the front of the arrangement to continue that lovely colour all the way through the bottom. Now I've still got a huge amount of floral foam to cover, and this sometimes can be the problem with supermarket flowers, is that you need to have that extra greenery to be able to cover your floral foam. But there are still a few more flowers in the mixed bunch. I've got a spray, I've got two. So this is Statice. If you haven't used Statice before, this is a really fabulous one to grow in the garden. It lasts for ages, it can dry, and you can use it in different styles of arranging. So again, what I need to think about is creating that quite formal pattern. So this is a really good one for beginners. Maybe if you've been arranging for a while, this won't be challenging enough for you, but it's a great one that you can have a little play around with on a wet, miserable afternoon, which is a bit like it is today. So two stems, and I've placed two towards the back, and then I'm going to bring another two pieces towards the front, and one a little bit towards the middle. And again, I'm trying really to distribute that colour in a very patterned and formal way. Right, so we've got 2 stems of chrysanthemums, and you could quite easily put those in the arrangement in their full length, but I'm going to cut this into 2, and then that means I'm going to get a taller piece for the top and the back, and then a shorter piece that can tuck in on the front. So sometimes it's a case of a little bit of jiggery pokery and working out how you can get your flower stems to go that little bit further in your arrangement. I'm going to do the same then, just cut off a few of the damaged heads. Do the same with this stem, and now what I can do is place one up towards the back, so we've got an extra bit of colour up at the height, and then I can tuck 2 in more towards the front in that very sort of set pattern. Now I know that this isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea, and I'm probably going to get some thumbs down when you come to comment in the box below, but this is really aimed at beginners who want to understand formal placements of flowers. And you know, if you don't like it, you can always comment in the box below. I'm quite happy to listen to your feedback and to find out what styles of arrangement you really enjoy. Now we've got this 1 stem of chrysanthemum, and again, you could put it in as it is, but if you look at the bunch, you'll find that the small little sprays of chrysanthemum are going to work really well, cut down and distributed in and around that front section. And anything that's got a taller stem on it can be placed higher up, or you can do that same little trick again, cut the main stem so that you've got an extra bit of height to get some taller placements of flowers. And I think that's worked quite well. Might not be everybody's choice, but I think that's looking quite good. Now I'm going to finish it off by adding in some of the greenery, and this will definitely soften the arrangement. It's going to add in a new texture, a new colour. The grey eucalyptus foliage is going to work really well with the blues in the arrangement. Start by just strengthening the outline. So I'm going to work backwards, and I do quite often say this. Sometimes when I photograph the design at the end, I do have to move a few flowers around, especially when I'm working backwards like I'm doing here today. So I'm going to fill in that back section. If you don't have eucalyptus, look for something in the garden that is quite elongated. You could have rosemary, you could have privet in your garden, euonymus, anything that's not quite so thick and bunchy. Now, of course, if you're at home and you're enjoying flowers for yourself, then you don't always have to put the greenery in at the back. But what you will find is the floral foam will dry out much quicker. So maybe invest in some artificial greenery, or you might have ivy in the garden. You can fill in the back with an inexpensive material just to prevent that floral foam from drying out. And then I'm going to use some soft wispy bits just through to the front here, so that I bring that lovely colour of the eucalyptus right the way through to the front. This is going to help fill in any gaps, hide that floral foam, because it's important that we can't see the foam when we finished our design. Just a few little pieces towards the front, and I think I'm probably finished. Now, this tutorial was really aimed at beginners and those arrangers that haven't got a lot of experience with arranging flowers. And I know that it can be quite hard when you're arranging supermarket flowers, because they come in set quantities and they're not always the right colour or the right flower choice. So this is really helping you understand how you can incorporate those different flowers. Now, it's always at this stage I say to you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so that you know every time I've uploaded a new tutorial. Let me know where you're watching from, what designs you would like to see, what you like and what you dislike. And please share with as many people as you can. You can share them on social media so other people find us as well. And that's today's arrangement. Good luck, enjoy, and we'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.